10 years ago, we had Steve Jobs, the Apple founder, who just died yesterday, I think. We had Bob Hope and Johnny Cash. Now we have no Jobs, no Hope, and no Cash. So let's hope that some of us here on this stage can be the hope that will ensure jobs for the people to get their cash. Having said that, it's indeed very provocative or provoking that we are gathered here this morning to talk about how many Malaysians do we have. The answer to me to this question, from the point of view of wanting the country to move forward and moving forward, not from the sociological or from sentimental point of view or grinding axe, whatever. To me, we have only one Malaysia. This is one and only Malaysia that we have. But of course, we have 28 million Malaysians, hundreds of thousands of hopes and aspirations, and of course, maybe 1,000,001 grouses and complaints. But ironically to me, when you have a slogan like One Malaysia, you tend to get a reaction, a question, like the topic of our Komas conference today, how many Malaysians do we have? Because we have this One Malaysia slogan, so people are asking, and we not have one all this while? It's not unlike some years ago when our then Prime Minister Tun Abdullah Mak Badawi or Pak Lah came out with this slogan, Islam Hadari. Some friends of mine, mainly the non-Muslim, they asked me, Islam yang tidak hadari adakah? Well, as you know, Islam is Islam, Islam is Islam, or Christian is Christian, or Buddhism is Buddhism, whatever. I'm one of those who is not comfortable or not at ease when one tries to rebrand, especially religion. Anyway, our founding fathers like Almarhum Tunku Abdul Rahman, from the late Tun Temenggung Juga, yang Allahyarham Tun Mustafa, the late Tun Tan Cheng Lock, and Tun Samantan, if they were alive today, of course they will be quite proud of our achievements financially, economically, in many ways, but they would say that if we are still discussing whether we have one or two Malaysias, it could be a betrayal or insult to what they have been fighting for or what they fought for. So with the sole purpose of, because they signed the Malaysia Agreement with the sole purpose of having one united nation or one country. Otherwise, why should they agree to sign? I asked a question to the founding Prime Minister of Singapore some years ago when he came here, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. Why is it that Singapore, being just like cousin or just like a twin to Peninsular Malaysia, Siamese twin, left Malaysia after 1 or 2 or 3 years? Actually, it's 3 years. 2 years, huh? 2 years later. And why is it that I come from Sarawak and Sabah, after so many years, we're still there? Well, as you know, Lee Kuan Yew is a very smart person or leader. He had so many answers to that. But he said because when we signed the Malaysia Agreement, we did not expect to be second-class citizens. But I think it was too early to say, but he left 2 years later. So when the present Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib came up with this One Malaysia slogan, rakyat didahulukan, pencapaian diutamakan, in many ways, to me, as a cornerstone of his administration, it's a good and timely reminder that we are, for whatever differences or things that we don't see eye to eye or fail to agree to disagree, we are one Malaysia. I come from Sarawak, although my late father came from the same state as Professor Samsul. He came from Rembau, Negeri Sembilan, but he migrated there many, many decades ago. Sarawak is like Sabah, a state where we just don't talk about one Malaysia because we live, we breathe, we sleep, we dream one Malaysia. It's a way of life there. If you want to know what I mean, then go to these two states. Either you work there or stay there for a while, get a job there, get a feel of it, or better still, marry someone from there. I'll give some example because in my own family, we have, my parents had 10 children. I'm the number 5. 4 of my brothers are not married to Malays. 3 of them are married to Dayak or Iban, 1 married to a Chinese. So there's a lot of intermarriages there. I think one of the recipes for the success of a United Nation, I mean, of course, you can't force marriages, but the more of such marriages, I think, should be a way of forward for one Malaysia understanding. People don't talk about along racial lines in Sabah and Sarawak. I happened to work in Sabah for 4 years before I came here, some 29 years ago. My almost 30 years experience of living in Kuala Lumpur or moving around the mainland Malaysia, initially I got a cultural shock because people like to talk, are very conscious about their races. They like to talk along racial lines, especially taxi drivers, or many of them. One feels the racial balance, harmony is quite fragile here, still is. Sometimes when some provocative issues or racial issues or religious issues are being bandied about, people got so worked up that you get scared that some clashes may happen, but thanks God, it's not happening. Sensitivities, people talk about, for example, those pro-Malay groups, Ketuanan Melayu and whatever, Ketuanan. You don't get this kind of talk in Sabah, Sarawak. Not for the next 1,000 years. So, I would say that since I came here, I'm here today wearing the hat of One Malaysia, I like to just say for next few minutes, the problems and challenges that we face. Vested interest, one of the challenges or problems that we face is vested interest with a stake in perpetuating ethnic dichotomies which are inimical to national unity. This is written by my Yayasan Satu Malaysia, not me. As a journalist, I like to write it more simple. Another one is unhelpful religious sentiments also impede One Malaysia. There are influential elements in the religious establishment who do not realize that their narrow, bigoted interpretations of rules and regulations undermine that universal, inclusive spirit of Islam, for example, which reinforces the notion of common humanity that One Malaysia envisages. Communal pronouncements and ethnic distortions and misconceptions which are ventilated more frequently than before in public square. Words like pendatang, directed at fellow non-Malay citizens, are not only demeaning and degrading but also utterly reprehensible from the standpoint of our quest for national unity. What more needs to be done? Like I said earlier, maybe learn from Sabah and Sarawak, how they live their lives there. Secondly, raising public awareness should become a more systematic and organized enterprise with the capacity to rectify serious inter-ethnic misunderstandings. Then there should be a concerted effort to curb corruption. I happen to sit on a panel of anti-corruption advisory board, and we realized after sitting there for 1 or 2 years that how big corruption is. I mean, I have been realizing that, we all have realized this, but once inside there, we know how difficult it is actually to fight corruption, because especially now, a lot of NGOs or political parties, they tend to fight the MACC or SPRM and not fight corruption. So as SPRM, of course, they have their own weaknesses, but there should be a concerted effort to curb corruption, abuse of power and greed at all levels of society, and our friend Arin Fernandez has just elaborated on this, and she is having a ringside view of some of the injustices or even corruption that takes place every day. Media practitioners, politicians, bureaucrats, business people, and indeed the influential stratum of society should be encouraged to view issues of ethnicity in relation to the economy from a more holistic perspective that takes into consideration the interests and feelings of the others. An all-encompassing understanding of justice that goes beyond ethnic boundaries is imperative if one is to achieve the goal of One Malaysia. When I said earlier, I look at this country, One Malaysia, from the standpoint of moving this country forward, because I've been to so many countries, countless number of countries actually. In the 22 years I followed Dr. Mahathir as Prime Minister overseas, that have gone backward actually, compared to when they were in colonial times, mainly in Africa. So maybe because they have tribals, they are ruled by tribalism. Once their own people came to power, I met so many people in the street of Africa, they said, our country was better before when we were under the British. Unfortunately, it's getting worse now. So many African countries that I've been to. Certainly Malaysia is not one of such country, thank God, and we all have to be thankful, but it does not come easily, and we cannot take things for granted. I just lost an ex-colleague of mine who was killed by from an armored car, that bernama TV cameraman in Somalia. Ill-advised, they went there. So many people advised them not to go there, but some politicians wanted to show something, then they went ahead. If you Google Somalia, you get 101 stories every day about how life there is equal to less than 1 cent. 1 sen pun tak ada, the worth of life. Every other day, every other cabinet minister has been assassinated. Every other senior government has been assassinated every other week or every other month. So here we have a Malaysian team going there, well, with good intention of trying to distribute some food items. But when they saw some foreigners coming in town, surely it's good shooting practice for them. So there are so many countries that could be worse off because they are not united, because they feel that they would rather survive on tribal diversities. We have diversities, but we also have achieved a lot, and my friend here said. So I think to look forward, to move forward, there is only one Malaysia for us. Thank you very much.